Hi students, today I am going to introduce a new topic which has been initiated by AICT. The title of the topic, it is the experiential engineering education, but in brief we call it as a EXCEED. That's a prototype design building. This is regarding to inject a new idea, new procedure, new practice, and new things in the new policy of education. All of you may be knowing that this has been introduced only from your batch. So let me briefly introduce what you might have learned earlier, under what circumstances, under what environment this has been introduced to you. The idea of a technocrat is he has to develop a product. So in the process of developing a product, he has to undergo many procedures, that is methodologies and processes, and of course practices, and of course testing, viability, and he must also check whether the product is viable or not. Any modifications are needed before we go for the mass production of the product. So under this pretext, in your first year, first semester, you might have been exposed to how to generate idea and what is an idea. In that process, first of all, you should know when ideas will be generated. Idea will come only when there is a need. If there is a need, normally you don't get any idea unless there is a pressure, unless there is a compulsion, unless you feel that something I have to do for the society. See, I have taken so much from this society. The cloth I am wearing, the spectacles I am using, the pen I am writing with that, and anything else, all the comforts I am enjoying, it is given by somebody else, and all are helping for my sustainability and my pleasure. So what is it I can return to the society? What is it I can give back to the society and my co-fellows? So that's maybe, if you think in a broader line, that should be the way. In that context, probably after our graduation, we are all doing our technical education, right? After our graduation, what is that I can contribute to this society? How I make this society comfortable, feel comfortable? What should be my contribution to this society? With that sage thinking, okay, let us also think of what we can develop, what we can give to the society, so that society will feel also proud of us. That means technocrats. See, we are all technocrats. We are all learning that technical courses, and each course has got some objective, and each course has got some outcomes. All these objectives are fulfilled, all these outcomes are satisfied. That's we have to make a test for every subject that we read. So also here, in the present course, we try to discuss about the prototyping. See, prototyping, it's a, once you get an idea, the idea is to be consolidated with the help of a design to spend a minute about the design, the idea that comes into your mind is to be clearly put into a template, or I have to create a template wherein I must think about the size, dimensions, color, creed, whatever it may be. All these things I have to fix up boundary for my framework and fix up my idea into that, and I'll also have to add on what are the functionalities that are needed, and what is this product will be for the intended audience or not, who are going to use this particular product, and what is the cost, what is the efficiency, that's what is the quality, and whether this product is viable, and also do my consumers have got the ability to purchase. That also I have to keep in mind. Keeping all these things, I develop a product, and prototyping is a very, very important stage wherein we will be able to, before really making a working model, we do go for this prototyping. So let us see first the overall view of this subject, or the object to the subject. We'll try to think about. Actually, this course provides, right? It gives an overall exposure to various methods and also tools of prototyping. I said we are learning something about the prototyping, so we must know first of all the exposure to the various methods and tools. Then, apart from that, in this course, we try to learn something like about fidelity, low fidelity, medium fidelity, high fidelity, and paper, wireframing, and tool-based prototyping techniques, along with the design, and of course, and patterns. So there is nothing new about these terminology. So this is our intention. That means once you learn this course, you will be able to expose it. You will get some sort of awareness about all these things. Then we see, once we know the overall view of the subject, we should also study what are the objectives, what is the need, and keeping what objectives we are going to learn the subject. So from that point of view, the first objective we try to say, we must understand what you call, we must learn the principles and design of prototyping. That's the first aspect. What are the principles of the prototyping? How I can design this prototyping? That's number one, first objective. The second objective, what are the techniques that are available, and what are the design guidelines, and what are the patterns? That means, what are the techniques to do the prototype, and what design guidelines I have to follow if I have to design a prototype. And of course, the pattern, what type of pattern I'll be able to do this prototyping. Here maybe a word, pattern, is a new thing. Probably in the due course you'll be able to understand and appreciate what is the meaning of a pattern. Pattern is also a way, a method, right? We'll see. Then the third objective is that what are the applications of prototyping? Now this is very important. When we are going to develop some product, the product must have some application. Any product you make, if doesn't have any applications, zero applications, then what is the use? What is the fun? What is it we are going to give to the society? So from that point of view, we also find out what are the applications of the prototyping and how to develop those applications, and what are the various tools that are available, and what platform it is possible. So keeping this in view of the three basic course objectives, we call these are the course objectives. Why? Because before going to the course, you must be able to learn those objectives. We must be able to understand those objectives. keeping them in mind, then only we'll be able to study the course. Once we complete the course, then again, of course, we'll come back. There are certain outcomes after completion of the course. Each and every student must be able to. So there are some outcomes, and we'll have to map these objectives and outcomes. Probably this is again a new trend in the new methodology of the new AICT policy. We have to map what are the objectives and then outcomes there, whether mapping is there or not. That is a different thing which we'll little later we know. Let us start the actual course and then think about this. Now, see the preliminary case. Let us, this class will try to get introduced what is a prototype. So, so what we are trying to talk about is prototype. What is that? Prototype is an early sample, model, or release of a product built to test a concept or a process. See, when an idea is formulated, there is only a conceptual level. It's only a process, something like that, which will think in our mind, and that has to be brought out, and it has to be given some shape. It has to be given some reality. See, thought process has to be converted into a reality. So in that, this is most probably the very important stage is a prototyping. And this concept and what we think about the process can be tested by developing a prototype. See, why can't we directly go to a real model? There are some disadvantages if you go to the real model. The very first and biggest one is cost criteria. If you develop a real model and if that is not functioning, is not working, is it worth to do that? Definitely not. There will be a loss of time, loss of energy, loss of money. So again, we can't dismantle it and start from the scratch. So that's the reason definitely we'll have to develop a prototype, which is an early sample. It is telling a sample or it is a model. It's not the real, but it's a model or it is a release of a product, right? So these are the basic ideas about that. Again, we generally use, where do we use the prototype? We use this prototype to evaluate a design, to enhance the precision by the system analysts and users. There are people who are using this system and there are also analysts who try to analyze the system. So to enhance the precision, right, by these people, we evaluate, right, a new design. We evaluate new design. So this is a method. So prototyping is used to evaluate a new method or a new design to enhance the precision by system analysts and users. Of course, the prototyping also serves to provide, the important thing is specifications for a real working system rather than a theoretical one. So the dimensions are also important, and at this stage itself you will be able to get the information about the specifications, what are the dimensions of a real working system rather than theoretically telling. And also sometimes some design workflow models also there. Sometimes there is what we call, this is a process called materialization. So that is, we convert the idea into material form. We bring that idea into a material form. That is what we call as a materialization. Actually, this is a step between what you call formalization and evaluation of an idea. So what we'll do? Formalization, and after formalization, we can evaluate both the things. To perform these two things, we must go for, or we must do what you call as the prototyping. This is the basic, I hope you will be able to follow what is a prototyping, what we are going to do with the help of the prototyping. So, with this brief introduction, probably if you go and develop a prototype product which is not a real, the previous slide is telling about this is a model. Right? So, when we develop a prototype, what are the various things which we can incorporate, or what it speaks about? A prototype speaks about, right? So, we can go for a functional model, and we can go for a testing, we can make a product visible, and we can make a sample evaluation, and we can also make some sort of a software research, and we can also calculate the costs, working costs, and we also design, we can also find out the specifications, we can also rapidly we'll be able to construct. That's a rapid model. Whatever the concept is there in our mind, that is the concept has come through the idea. Then the concept is what happened, we have formulated as a design, or we have built a template for a design. From the design, we are now going to construct a prototype. So this slide talks about, if you are going to develop a model prototype, various activities can be incorporated to that. That's an idea. Now, is again some of the, what is a prototype is given by example, representation of conceptual design for users, right? For users, right? We are representing a conceptual design to interact, right? If you want to interact with the prototype, there are different forms of prototypes are there. What are the forms? Probably we can make the prototype using some of the cardboards, foam, software, the video, paper, hidden people, some sketches, and scripts, and also you can make indexing like that. Some website, using website also. These are all the, we can say prototype will take form. A form is type, in not exactly the type. Different forms will be able to formulate the prototype. So some of the forms he has given as cardboard, foam, software, video, clay, paper, hidden people, websites, sketches, scripts, index cards, etc. So these are all what you call different forms. Somebody asks you a question, what are the different forms of the prototyping? You must be able to answer this with these things. Now, the next slide talks about, again, is trying to some examples of prototyping as shown here. Trying to see, these also continued some of the examples what we have seen here. Then there are some handheld universal remote controls. These are also, we can make some of the prototype of the remote control handheld. These are all handy. Why we are calling handheld? Because we can easily handle with our hand. That's only we call handheld universal remote prototyping. So these are all some examples how it looks for only. We'll continue this maybe in the next slide. Now, before going further about this prototyping, we have to talk about what is an early design and what is a late design. In between, what happened? There are 4 steps. What are the 4 steps that are available? The first step we call as a low fidelity prototype. In this early stage, or the first case, we choose a representation which is very rough, and we'll have an interface style also that is rough out interface style, and there will be some task walkthrough. This is the low fidelity prototype. Then what we will do, keeping this in mind, we redesign it at this stage. Once you make the redesign of the low fidelity prototype, Then we'll go to the next stage, what we call as a medium fidelity prototypes. What happens in the medium fidelity prototypes? There, we try to do fine tune the interface. The previous interface was in a rough style, but now we'll fine tune the interface, screen design, and heuristic evaluation. These are the important three phases, and finally we redesign here also. So what happens in this case, you all know about what is the meaning of a fine tuning interface. See, most of you know about the radio frequency matching or tuning, no? When you try to put your, you turn that tune somewhere it exactly doesn't place, then noise will come. So to arrest the noise or to curb the noise, again we try to fine tune that radio frequency, then you'll clearly get the voice. So that's what here also we try to adjust some of the things, that is a fine tune the interface. Of course, we make the screen design. This is heuristic evaluation, something related to the personal perception. Something in your mind will be telling, no, this is not the way to do, this is the way to go. Like that, always some heuristic human related things will be suggesting you. Based on those, again we'll make what you call the design. Here, the second time we'll go for a redesign. So first we have taken up, that is early design stage. We have a low fidelity prototype. Then we have come to the medium fidelity prototypes. Then the third is what you call high fidelity prototype. At this stage of the high fidelity prototype, we conduct the usability testing. That means whether can we use this product or not. That's the usability testing. And redesign, we'll again redesign accordingly. And also we'll conduct the limited field testing also there we'll conduct. That means if we really apply on the field, whether it works or not. This is what happens in case of a high fidelity prototypes. And finally, once we complete the high fidelity prototype, we go for what we call working system. That's it's not the real one, but it is a model. But this model will consist of all the functionalities, all the activities of a real working model or real working system. So at this stage, we'll conduct what we call alpha beta test. So these things will give some sort of a confidence for before going for the real model. So when we use these different types of prototypes, right? These are all the stages. One is a low fidelity prototype, medium fidelity prototype, high fidelity prototype, and working systems. And this is what you call late design. That's the difference. The difference between early design and late design, there are 4 phases are taking place. Probably we'll just check up here. We try to explore different aspects of a intended design. You know, design, all of you know what is intended design. The meaning of the intended design is for which this prototype, this product is meant for. Whether after development, whether this product is useful for the intended people or not. It may be useful, but if it is not for the intended people and intended functions are not taking place, then it is of no use. Then also we cannot, this real model will not serve the purpose. Actual production, the product will not help. That's the reason we must also check up different aspects of the intended. In the design stage itself, we must be able to check whether what are the aspects of an intended design. So the first thing we call as, see, we have to verify some key functional aspects of the intended design. See, before going for the design, we say this has to do, these are the functions. So that at this stage, first stage, we have to verify some of the key functional aspects of the intended design. But normally, it does not have all functionalities of the final product. There are chances maybe one or two functions missing, doesn't matter, but still the first case, what we do is a working prototype. It represents all or nearly all of the functionality of the final product. So that is the first thing what we have to check up, whether all functions or nearly all the functions or functionality of the final product is there or not. At this stage, we have to think of that is one aspect, and what we call as a proof of principle prototype. This, whether all functionalities are working or not, so that will check, that will verify, and that we call as a proof of principle prototype. Then the second probably aspect what we have to think is a visual prototype. By name of visual, what do you mean by visual prototype? Actually, it represents the size and appearance, but not the functionality. The functionality was done in the previous case, but not now. So the second aspect is the visual prototype. What we'll do in the visual prototype, and what we think about the visual prototype. In this case, we check what the size and appearance, but not the functionality. The earlier case, we have checked only the functionality. In the visual prototype case, we see the size and the appearance. So it is the form study of prototype. That means a form study prototype is a preliminary type of visual prototype in which geometric features of design are emphasized. Please try to make a note. The geometric features or the physical environmental features are visible or emphasized in this type of design, and also with less concern on the color, texture, or other aspects of the appearance. So the important thing is the geometric features at the visual prototype. Now, when you come to the third aspect, we call user experience prototype. See, different aspects of a prototype we have to take care of. So, the first aspect is talking about the functionality. The second aspect is talking about the visual prototype, speaks about the appearance and the size. And third aspect is user experience prototype. It represents enough the appearance of the product, and that can be used for the user to search or research. So this is a user experience prototype. It represents enough of the appearance and function of the product, both appearance as the function. Probably you might have observed here, the first type was only functionality, the second type was only appearance or geographical measurements, but the third, it is trying to add both the appearance and the function, and that is being taken care in the third aspect. So this is what about the prototyping. Then we'll go for the other aspect, what you call exactly functional prototype. What is a functional prototype captures? So the main intention of this functional prototype is both function and appearance of the intended design. See, ultimately we are transferring the design into this product, no? So the function and the appearance of the intended design, right, will be created with the different techniques and even different scale from final design. So whatever the design aspect, scaling is nothing but a small size with a reference to the size. In a smaller one or a bigger one, whatever it may be. Here, scaling in different scales, we will be able to check the functional prototype. The functional prototype checks about the appearance as well as the functionality in different scaling, that means different sizes. That is one aspect. Then the next aspect, what we call a paper prototype. We can also develop a prototype with the help of a paper. Here, what we'll do is a print or a handwritten representation of the user interface of a software product. So, what is a paper prototype in brief? It's a hand-drawn representation of the user interface of software product. Such prototypes are commonly used for early testing of a software design, and it can be part of the software walkthrough, right, and design decisions before. So, before going to the costly levels, definitely this paper prototype will help us if you want to go for any change. At this stage, we can comfortably do, because there is no much cost is involved in the paper prototyping. So all these prototypes actually, they are meant to reduce the cost and not to waste much of your energy, much of your time, etc. Now, why we are thinking all these are all different aspects what you have seen so far of the prototype. Now let us see why there is a prototyping a product is important. For a product, prototyping is important. Why? Can't we do the product without going for the prototype? We can, but disasters. There is every possibility that your product is not going to be successfully developed. Anyway, let us see some of the important why we go for the prototyping. Because the first point it talks about, it provides a true test of the design and intended function and its intended function. Then second point, it means that the prototype unit can be tested in its true environment. Even at a small miniature size, we can test it in its true environment. And suppose something is missing, some potentials are overlooked, those issues in the manufacturing process or the design itself can be highlighted, and if you want, you can make a change. That's an advantage of this prototype. Similarly, the third point, well, it provides an opportunity for the manufacturing cycle to get familiar with the unit before full production swings in. What do you mean by full production swings? Before going to the mass production or before going to the huge production, this will create some sort of a familiarity with the unit before full production. See, these are what you call, because of these features, because of these factors, we say this prototyping a product is important. So suppose somebody may ask you a question, why prototyping product is important? So you must be able to answer these four things. Now let us go a little more. It is also a chance to review the prototype unit and potentially added value for our client, as well as reviewing the way we manufacture to see if we can achieve the same results but take time out of the manufacturing process. Well, if you want to really see the real product, it may take more time and all. So that time can be saved and avoided. So we'll have by going for or by doing the prototype, we'll get a chance or we'll have a chance to review the prototype unit and potentially added value for our client, as well as reviewing the way we manufacture to see if we can achieve the same results, right? That's one advantage of the prototyping. So these are some of the features what we talk about. Once you understand the importance of the prototyping and of course different aspects of the prototyping, now the third important is we'll see process of the prototyping. We can show the process of our prototyping. What are the various steps that are involved in developing a prototype or doing a prototype? So this slide will talk about this. So the processing prototype, step by step it has given. The first is that what are the requirements? The first phase of the prototype, before we develop a prototype, we should make we should understand what are the requirements of the product. Then those requirements, looking into those requirements or considering those requirements, we must be able to make a quick design, because the design should consist all the requirements. You should not leave any single requirement. The idea is all the requirement is to be put in your template. Your design will take care of. Now the beauty starts once you really fix your requirements with the help of the design. The next thing is that build the prototype. This is true. So that's why design phase, people say, is very important. If you are good at design, probably the result, your half work is completed down. If there is some flaw in the design, there is every possibility your product may go wrong. So to avoid that, at the design stage itself, we must be able to check whether all our requirements are satisfied or not. So that will be taken care at the design stage. So okay, we'll come to the next phase, next stage, what you call as the build the prototypes. After design, definitely we'll go for the building. Then what you see, we call the user, if possible, if the user is readily available. We also call the user and we ask him, look, this is my prototype. You please evaluate this. So then the user starts evaluating that and going on, what you call is refining the prototype. Because as a customer, he should be satisfied. So how the customer will get satisfied? He will see whether the expected outcome is there or not. His dreams are true or not. He will be thinking something and he will be telling his requirements to the developer. Sometimes the developer may not be able to understand what he thinks. But at the time of what you call evaluation or what you call the testing, we can involve the customer and we can ask the customer, look, are you satisfied with this? So then at that stage also the customer may say some sort of a refinements. Yes, we can incorporate refinement because it's only a prototype. It's not the real type. So whatever changes we want, we can make those changes. We can incorporate these changes. Again we refine and again, look, yes, this is the change I have done. Are you satisfied? Probably in the processing model of software engineering, you have seen one spiral model. I'm not very sure whether you have gone through those processing models. In that one spiral model, we'll make one round of all the activities and show, are you satisfied? If you are not satisfied, we'll make one more round. Like that, we go on making rounds till the customer is satisfied. Only the problem here is, if you go on doing that, the cost increases. But however, satisfaction, cost, both are to be understood. See, as long as money is there, the customer says, yes, go, I want further refinement. But once the money is completed, money portion is over, when the customer is not in a position to invest, he says, okay, he'll be satisfied with the content. Of course, it's generally I'm talking about. And that's where the customer, with the help of the customer, will refine the prototype. And finally, we try to implement and maintain what are all the changes that a customer wants, that a customer needs. So this is often what this slide talks about, the process of prototyping. So various. So first we'd say requirements, quick design, build the prototype, then user evaluation, then refining the prototype, and we implement, and of course we maintain. These are the various stages that lie in a process of a prototyping. Now we go a little further about this. Let us say, we have seen what is prototyping, and after that we have seen what are the important aspects and also formations, that means paper, right, with website or with people, those things we have done. And after that we have seen some of the important aspects of the prototyping, and then we have seen why prototyping is important, why should we give importance to prototyping. And after that we have seen the process of a prototype. Now, there are certain qualities of a prototype. What are the qualities that a prototype should have? Regarding that, we try to think of. From the point of view of the quality, see, there are two aspects when the quality and of course the quantity also go together, but still quality is something different, and one has to concentrate your product salability and the customer satisfaction all depend upon the quality. So therefore, we have to consider some of the, what are the points, what are the important things of a quality of a prototype. So the first, we consider the accuracy. What do you mean by accuracy? Right? The prototype must be precise and accurate enough to be interpreted and accessed accurately to move further production. That means if I want to send this to the production line or to the production floor, first of all, I must check the measurements, that's in terms of the accuracy and the precision and accurate. So we have to check whether the prototype is accurate and precise. Then only we can go for the further action, that is a production floor will send our production process of a product. So that's why very important thing is accuracy. Once you identify the accuracy is a quality of a prototype, again the second aspect is the articulation. Articulation is something like related to the art feeling. You might have heard about artisan. Artisan is a person who does a particular activity with some sort of art. For example, your goldsmith is an artisan, your weaver is an artisan, your carpenter is an artisan. These are all the people, they are creative people and they are putting some sort of artistic look apart from the functionality. Anyway, that's point. See, all the parts of the prototype should be articulated well connected, well developed. So a well configured and well structured prototype has higher chances of approval from the client. See, this is what if you develop a prototype, if the prototype is very articulated, very attractive, apart from functionality, apart from its intended function, definitely the clients will give an easy approval. Just by looking at it, they'll get an impression and definitely they give the early approval. It's only a chance. Of course, sometimes only articulation will not help, but there are also other factors. So the second important quality of a prototype should be, the prototype should be accurate and precise, the prototype should be articulated, and the third and important one is basic functionality. So your prototype should also have the basic functionality. What are the basic functionality? A prototype must perform the intended functions, basic functions. See, if it is somehow related to the digital field or digital solution, right? That is important. So we'll take an example of an application to be launched in the market. The app must have the basic functions to help understand its usability when prototyped. So by looking at the prototype, we must be able to understand the usability, right? So if usability is known at the stage of prototyping, yeah, your job is over, what you are intended for that. So in brief, what we are trying to think about, discussing at the qualities, what are the qualities that are required for a prototype? The qualities are accuracy and precision, articulation, and of course the basic functionality has to be there when we call about the quality of a prototype. Let us see the next important aspect, what we call, this is materializing the raw ideas. So this is a prototyping is a crucial, because why we say it is very crucial, it helps us to formulation. So now at this stage we make this as a materialistic. What do you mean by materialistic? So convert that raw idea into reality. So, in case of materializing the raw ideas, raw idea is like that. Raw is everywhere. See, raw food, right? Raw vegetables, anything which is not, ready to eat. So here also we'll have first of all something in our mind that is raw idea. So in the raw idea, what we'll have first, it helps to designers and engineers in materializing their raw ideas. They'll have something in mind. That's what we call raw idea. That raw idea is to be materialized. So for materializing the raw idea, this will help. Prototyping will help. That is number one. The second is rectification. Well, this is a very, very important one. Prototyping, it helps in the rectification of design flaws, because at this stage of design, if we observe some flaw, definitely we can rectify it. And loopholes in the very beginning of the project. When project is going to be started or it has initiated, there may be some loopholes. Those loopholes and the design flaws or any defect, we will be able to easily understand at the stage of, that is prototyping. So here what we call this as we can find these things, flaws, and we can rectify. That is what we call rectification is possible. The first advantage is that raw ideas can be materialized. The second one is we can make rectification. This prototyping will help us to make rectification of flaw design or any loopholes you observe. Then material versatility also is there. Versatility means probably you will be just thinking about, helps in testing the design along with materials proposed for use in the product. So different materials, versatility, not with a single material. You can go and change different materials and try to develop your prototype and see what are the results, what are the effect, what is the impact of changing these material. So these three things also, the prototyping is very crucial and helps in materializing raw ideas, rectification, and material versatility. For material versatility also, it helps us. This is where we try to think of. Now, a further advantage of prototyping, we can all list this as what you call use the prototyping. Then is prototyping attracts investments. That means any buyer or any investor who sees, before looking at the real model, if he understands the prototyping and if he knows what are the functionalities of all these things, definitely he will come forward to invest. So prototyping is a product or a project, right? It attracts the investors, which can be sigh of a relief for the designers involved in the process. Well, before actually making the product a real product, if you get some investors, don't you think it's a pleasure for the developers and designers? Exactly. This is a pleasure. So this is possible. The prototyping attracts investments. Similarly, prototyping saves money also. Why we are telling prototyping saves money? Because it helps to save money for all investors who are all involved in the due process of mass production. Before going to the mass production, before going to the actual production, well, they can spend very little money for prototype, and if they satisfy with everything, the design aspect and other characters, functionalities, if we satisfy, then only you will go to the design. Otherwise, you will rectify at the level of the prototype itself. So rectification at the level of the prototyping is very easy and comfortable, and it is not much cost involved, or it is cost effective. So that's where prototyping saves money also. The problem here, after completion of the product, if you again to restart, means a lot of money will be wasted. That means that's where we are calling the prototyping saves money. And then finally, one can go at the early stage itself. What is the profit and loss estimation? Profit and loss estimation. Loss. So that estimation can also be done at this stage of prototyping. So this help in the estimation of a profit margin or loss for the parties involved in this project. Don't you think this is definitely an advantage? What do you feel about the development of the prototyping? So definitely, I hope you all agree with me that prototyping is a very essential thing and is a must before you go for the real production. That's what we try to take. Some more aspects of these things, what we call as, finally we'll be able to refine the final outcome. So this prototyping also helps to refine the final outcome. That's what he says. Prototyping helps refine the final outcomes, either in the case of a digital product or a physical one. Whether it's a digital or physical, we'll be able to refine it. And of course, prototyping protects the intellectual property. This is again a different story. At the stage of inception, before actually developing the product, you can also go for a IP, that is intellectual property. It's a property. It reserves your intellectual property of ideator. See, the idea is generated. This helps. If you go for IP, you can protect your idea so that the others will not copy your idea. So you will be permanently, the idea will be yours. You can own the idea. If anybody wants to use your idea, that they have to take your permission, or sometimes, once he uses your idea or this product, he will give you the returns also. So that's one advantage. So this is also possible at this stage of prototyping instead of completion. So these are some of the things which we are trying to think of about the prototyping. This is what we call a brief idea, overall overview, and also brief introduction about the prototyping. Hope you understood something. What is the need of a prototyping? What are the properties, probably, what is that we can do with the help of prototyping? What way the prototyping will help us? And finally, why should you go for the prototyping? And in the last, we have seen what are the various processes that are in prototyping. And finally, you have seen what are the things that we can do with the help of a prototyping. Now, before going to the further, we discussed that the types of prototyping in the in the coming slide. So here, once you understood the importance and of course the overall advantage of the prototyping or use of prototyping or some of the features after knowing the prototyping, now we'll try to think, certainly we'll go a little ahead, we'll try to see what types of prototypings are there. That means here also different types of prototypings are possible. What are they? Let us see. Now, how the product would be used and which would be the target audience. So here the important thing is there are two factors. One factor is how this product would be used and would be the target audience. That means who are all the target audience. The second one is will representation or we make a general appearance of the product. We need to prototype. Is it for representation or general appearance of the product? We need to prototype. So these two factors are important before going for the prototype. That means when you want to try to see the types of prototyping, two factors are important. Those only these two factors. Let us see. The next slide talks about one is feasibility prototype. What is this feasibility prototypes? And okay, we'll also try to talk about or give one example about this feasibility prototype. This type of feasibility prototype, they are made to test viability and feasibility of the product. There are two important things that are associated here. One is viability, other one is feasibility. What is the main difference with viability and feasibility? Yes, we have developed this prototype, whether these types are made to test, is it viable or not viable? Sometimes, cost effective is also a very important thing, viable or not, and also possible or not, which talks about the feasibility of the product. Whether even if this is viable at the prototype level, is it feasible to develop the product? Say, to explain this, for example, you are considering some, spatial, right? We use in cooking with a material other than silicon. A silicon is the most commonly used material, right? And these days, in order to test the feasibility of your product, you definitely, you would definitely prototype it first with a material other than silicon. See, the beauty here, you must be able to understand. Viability, you can make a test at the prototype level. Then whether you can think of whether feasibility is possible or not. So that's what one type of prototypes, what we call, is a feasibility prototype. So, and these prototypes, what we'll do, they are made to test the viability and feasibility of the product. That is the first important type, feasibility prototypes. Then, again, the feasibility prototypes can be with the different characteristics. This is what you call, think of a technical complexity on the x-axis, and we see design requirements the other side. So we must bring out some sort of a trade-off about the feasibility prototypes. What are these feasibility prototypes? What we are trying to see? The first phase, right? We start somewhere here, feasibility prototypes, right? We make a testing. What are the technical limitations? Then, low fidelity user prototypes, we take what is the value of, right? What is the value of the proposition? And high fidelity user prototype, we'll make a usability test. Then, the live data prototypes. That's how we try to think of these feasibility prototypes. What is that we have? When you write the technical complexity in the x-axis and the design requirements in the y-axis, probably in the 4th quadrant, we start with the feasibility prototypes, which make a testing. What is the first test we do? Technical limitations. What are the technical limitations? The second one is, what is the proposition? What proposition will make this? And of course, we make a third is what you call testability or usability, not testability, sorry. It is a usability. And finally, when we conduct the usability prototype or we develop this, then only we go for the live product prototype. That is what you call what a behavior. It is proven with data. We give some data and we'll prove. So this is again, we are just something extended feasibility prototype. So the first one, not extended, the various other aspects of the prototype. So we have seen that the second category, second type is live data prototype. In the previous case, it's not live. We have not shown that's not live. So what is a live data prototype? We are trying to talk about the types of prototypes. What is a live one? So a prototype intended to test, a prototype intended to test the digital features and functionality of a program or a solution. So it's very closely designed to the original product or solution using JavaScript and HTML. See, well, this is live data prototypes. That's the reason we are using some data. Live data prototypes help to analyze the success or failure of the project. This is a very important thing one has to keep in the mind. The live data prototype helps to analyze the success or failure of the project with the help of feedback provided by users involved in testing products. See, there are some users who are involved in the testing process. At that stage, those who are doing or those who are involved in the testing, what we try to do is we use these live data prototypes. So there is some specific use for these live data prototypes. So this prototype, live data prototype, is intended to test the digital features and also the functionalities of a program or a solution. So this is another type, what we call as a live data prototypes. Now we'll see miniature prototypes. This is the third type of prototype is a miniature type. What do you mean by miniature? Miniature means by definition is small size, miniature. So this is the 3-dimensional or even 2-dimensional depiction of the product in a miniature form, in a small form, right? Very small form. Either it could be in the 3-dimensional or it could be 2-dimensional form. We can develop the prototype. So when we try to do, when we develop this prototype, this is what we call 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional in a miniature size. That means size is very small. So for example, we'll say some sort of a inauguration ceremonies of the building. The movements you might have seen, the smaller versions being grounded there for the groundbreaking ceremony. A mini sculpture more precisely, those are miniature prototypes. Probably you also seen when we are entering a big building or well designed area and all, what try to do is a model will be created and shown to the audience or people who are going to visit that particular inaugural activities. So at the stage of inauguration they will show, so this is the model, this is how actually once we build up this building. Maybe this is true in case of a real estate people who are doing that real estate business. They say that our building will have following features, these, that, color, creed, and some of these functionalities, and also some of the here will have that. So playground will have a small club, will have a small supermarket, medical facility, and also swimming, etc. All these things that is not really built, but at the time of inauguration, what they will do is they will make a model. That itself, what we call it, a prototype. That itself is a prototype. Most of you might have seen or observed when you go out. That is a miniature prototypes. That is a very small 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional real picture in a miniature size. That's what we are showing as a prototype. This is one type. Then we go to the next, what you call low fidelity prototypes. Here, right, it's a rough or low maintenance prototype of a product. It's a rough or low maintenance prototype of a product that does not give an advanced idea of the end results or feasibility of the project. They serve the purpose. What purpose it will serve? See, he is very clearly telling at the low fidelity prototype, actually, they serve the purpose of educating the audience, communicating with the audience, informing the people of certain solution. But yet, they are not the real. Yet, they are not the real, but very low maintenance prototype of product, right? That will not give the advanced idea of the results, but it will give these three things. It will educate the audience, it will communicate with the audience, and it will inform the people of certain solution about the prototype or about the actual thing. So actual reality. So this is what you call low fidelity prototypes. So we are just trying to think about types of prototypes. Then the next one, actually the low fidelity prototypes, right? They can help connect with the target audience through the materialization of concepts, ideas in tangible manner. There are two things. One is tangible, other is which is not tangible. So When it is tangible, you can feel, you can touch, you can see, okay, something is there. So fidelity properties can be made. How do you make the fidelity properties? There are something like that. So they can be made in the form of rough sketch, clickable wireframe, a drawing representation, representing idea, of course, a board with all the collected data summarized in the form of a picture, charts, or graph. So, with the help of a collected data summarized in the form of pictures, charts, or graph. This is how actually you'll make the fidelity prototypes. In this what we is trying to talk about, how you'll make the fidelity prototype, he is talking about. Let me see. This is again low fidelity prototype, high fidelity prototype. This is making a comparison. What's the difference between the low fidelity prototype and high fidelity prototype? See, we have seen the other slide where we have started low fidelity to high fidelity before actually the real product. Is it not? Or before what you call the working model that we have developed. So here actually we are trying to see what is the difference between the low fidelity prototype and high fidelity prototype. See, in case of a low fidelity, we are trying to do sketch, paper prototype, and clickable wireframe. This is when in the phase of low fidelity prototype. But when you transfer this into high fidelity, we write high fidelity wireframe. Of course, we will make here as a 3D printing. That's the difference, main difference between the low fidelity prototype and high fidelity prototype. See, this one must be able to appreciate the difference between the low fidelity and high fidelity. Or that only we have seen. Now, further, this slide talks about some of the high fidelity prototypes and what are the functions of these high fidelity prototype, and we'll try to learn something more about this high fidelity prototype. So when you consider this high fidelity prototype, the name suggests, the name itself high fidelity, the name suggests these are high-end form of prototypes. High fidelity is a high-end form, that is high-end form, which are almost similar to the end product. Because next to that we'll go for the working model only. So that is almost it look like a working model similar to the end product, but not exactly the same as the original would be. It is used by companies with relatively high budget and sponsors. So if there is a budget, the budget for the high fidelity prototype will be higher, and also they look for the sponsor, somebody who can sponsor, then only will go for high fidelity prototype. And what are the qualities of this high fidelity prototype? If you look the quality of the high fidelity prototype, it's almost similar to the product. By just appearance, if you see suddenly, you think, oh, is it the real model, the real thing? It's not a model, it's a real reality. You feel like it's a reality. Then a combination of the materials can be tested, making high fidelity prototype. That means you can use different combinations of material of your desire, and then you can change that. That advantage will be there in case of the high fidelity prototypes. So that's what we see in the high fidelity prototype. Let us say again, further going, the high fidelity prototype, it may lack a feature or two as compared to the original product. See, what is the difference between this high fidelity prototype and the real one or the product? That is, there may be one or two features when you compare to the original product. So that's all, less other thing. Otherwise, this is as good as original product. Then it can undergo enhanced interaction and also testing. We can as many times. That means suppose you want to go to test it once, twice, thrice, like that. You can any number of tests you can conduct, and in any number of times you can interact with this stage or at this stage, and also it will help to identify and rectify the design flaws in a more effective and efficient way. So if still there are some design flaws are there, still there are some defects are there, they can be effectively rectified and in efficient way. That's again regarding, this is regarding your high fidelity things. Now probably we try to think about display prototypes. The first you see high fidelity prototype, and the second one what we call as a display prototype. This will continue in the next slide.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.